So today, if you talk about AI, the biggest issue is not about that we want to build the AI model or something. It is about, do we have the right data to feed it, right? And as I think Diana covered it in the introduction as well, the biggest blocker is not about, do you have the right sort of talent, do you have the right sort of stacks or tech, but it is about, do you have the clear, clean, and structured data to make that function, right? So in the next 35 to 40 minutes, we'll try to uncover that thing and how we can bridge the gap between the data challenges as well as how we can make them compelling to we have a better AI modeling at the end of the day. Chandan, if I start with you, in a globally distributed industries like you have worked with GE earlier, you are working with ABB, what's the biggest friction point you face in making AI data ready? Is it about availability or standardization across different systems, or it is trust among people and the customers? What is the biggest issue that you face?
I think you mentioned 3 points, right? Availability, standardization. One of the biggest factors that I feel is which we don't usually see is globalization. A lot of organizations are global. That means you have systems which are very diverse, and how you operate in those systems are very different across different geographies, different countries, maybe different business lines. So standardization of those systems is one of the biggest challenge. When you bring data from those disparate systems and you try to make something out of it, I think there's a lot of work which happens into improving your data quality, cleaning it up, making it such that it is usable. Unless and until the data is in a form which can be consistent for bringing a much bigger insight, it is almost impossible to use that data and make a value out of it. So I would say, in addition to those 3, I think it's the systems which are also a big issue, because the more diverse you are, the more diverse systems you have, the bigger challenges you have in getting a data, standardizing it, formatting it, making sure it's actually usable.
Got it. Nidhi, if I ask to you, and taking clues from what Chandan has just mentioned, if I see it from the domain that you come from, BFSI, where compliance is the real king, do you also see the similar kind of challenges, or you have a different set of challenges to tackle into, and especially when it comes to the democratization of data to have better visibility on the overall AI solutions and all?
So definitely sectors like banking, insurance, even pharma, they're highly regulated and rightly so, right? Because the kind of data we deal with are very personal to customers. So it needs to be, as you said, compliance driven, regulatory driven. Having said that, if you see, and most of us are from GCCs, one of the first GCC in India that really used AI and championed an organization ahead, if all of us know, would be Amex, right? Or Checkis also, for that matter. So while there's so much of compliance and regulation, banks actually have been pretty much in forefront of using AI. Classic use cases, which customer to give what loan, how much credit portfolio, and so on and so forth. So there has always been by the nature of these organizations, the requirement to capture data properly, because I am a customer of the bank. I don't want my data to be lost in some transit. So the transaction data, customer data, and imagine the richness of data these organizations have, banks have, and hence the kind of AI models that can be built on it is I think, amazing. Having said that, there are challenges for bigger organizations, banks which are global. So I work with a bank which is not very global. It is Commonwealth Bank of Australia. It's Australia-centric. And the global problem I still don't see. However, having said that, in terms of how do we make data more resilient and usable is definitely something which is on top priority. And the way I see it is just the way AI has matured. So earlier we used to have more predictive models. Now it's more about generating models and agentic models. So how is data ecosystem and compliance ecosystem evolving with that? We only used to talk about structured data till some time back. Now it's about unstructured data. We're talking about documents. How do we bring AI on top of that? So the evolving compliance is absolutely important. And I think the way I see things in our bank is security by design. How do we, when we build AI models, how do we have security as not an afterthought, but so responsible AI frameworks, how having those AI guardrails. AI is not very prescriptive that when you do 1 + 1, it will be 2. it can
Exactly.
become 3. So hence you need to have guardrails to understand the element of hallucination, the element of what can go wrong, and also the fact that it can be breached. So security obviously has to be pretty much inbound, but hence it's not a blocker, I would say, but it's definitely changes how we do things. It modifies how we do things, how we prioritize things.
Right, right. And Shivani, if I ask you, and I think Nidhi touched upon some very good points about security and all, when it comes to your background and your the current scenarios as well, working with massive amount of data at large scale, what has been challenge for you on a day-to-day basis? It is about, let's say, as we started with data quality or unstructuredness or infra at large. What has been the biggest challenges, and if we can touch upon how you're solving them, that's also important.
First of all, thanks for having me here. And all the points you have mentioned, I think you should have one more point, all of the above, right? Because I think depending on the business unit, depending on their maturity, the problems are different, right? So if I take the example of telecom in my company, it's a pretty mature sector in geo, right? But the time you come to other sector, either it is retail or sports or agriculture or even oil and gas, which is a very, very old, you can say vertical, things are not that mature, or they are more following the legacy system because they started their journey very early. So depending on when they have started their journey, the you can say systems are basically of that era or that generation. So that is one problem. Second, still we think that all the data is residing in one area or one lake or a warehouse, but that's not the case in every sector, right? So as the sectors are getting mature, the data is coming into central location. That is the first step anyone is taking, putting into probably multi-tenant cloud. That is the second step. The third step, probably where we are, is more utilizing the data into business usability. Clean data is still, I would say, a dream for most of us, most of the data scientist community. What we look forward to have that in future someday, but I don't think we will reach even next 5 or 8 years to be very precise. Now it is not a problem of having data or having good data or decent amount of data. Now the challenge is reverse. Now having too much of data.
Right.
How do you manage that data? How do you utilize that data and make it much more, you can say, usable is the problem what we are having. And that follows the entire cycle of your data cleansing, data quality, data availability, etc. If we think in a different way, why it is data and then AI, right? Now I think the probably 2 or 3 years back, that was the sequential process. But now AI is getting into the data where it is getting utilized to clean the data. It is getting utilized for ETL processes. It is getting utilized for each and every step of data journey as well.
Right.
So how do you automate your own work rather than probably giving a prescription to business unit? Let's start that journey from our own house, cleaning it up, making it available for each and every, you can say, use case where actual AI can be done, right? Data science piece where you are talking about building the model is separate, but the automation is also a piece of AI where data is getting done by AI models also. So that's the, I think, journey I have done with multiple organizations. Here it is nothing new. Everyone is trying to utilize the AI power to utilize the data in a better way. And also we haven't done more from the tagging perspective, but now with all these VLM models coming in, all the tagging is also going to happen very soon with your VLM models, where people don't have to wait for tagged data, or people don't have to wait for you can say unstructured data to be tagged by humans to utilize it. So unstructured data you can go for VLM, and structured you can go for LLM. Certainly that is going to be the future for all the tagging data in future.
But definitely it's not about one tool, it's a combination of
Absolutely
clearing the entire tech stack and then doing it, right?
So at different stage of journey, you have to think about how do you want to automate and what kind of a prescription you want to incorporate to automate that particular process. So either earlier we used to incorporate the AI's, you can say, decision making power on top of RPA, because RPA is more of a rudimentary thing.
Right.
But now with LLM coming into the place, it is the entire ecosystem. Agentic is taking the entire ecosystem of automation, where you are replacing RPA completely and using agent to do that task for, you can say, cleansing the data or quality control or monitoring the data. Those tasks can be done by agents now.
One thing which I've realized, and maybe it will change, we can never have perfect data landscape. So yeah, so if we say that we'll do AI when data is ready, then we are missing the opportunity. So it has to happen in parallel. And as she's saying that AI should also enable getting that perfect data, that has started happening with a big impact. So get the use cases, understand the outcome that you want to do, and then work backwards in what data you need. And that's a solvable problem rather than trying to wait for that ideal state.
Perfect situation will not happen. And AI solutions are not like one time you will get a 90% accuracy. It's an iterative process.
Right.
Once you iterate first process, you get some human, you can say, interruption, you get some feedback, and that feedback mechanism actually increases the, you can say, accuracy. So that's the process everywhere, either it is a data science model or a automation, both the places it is applicable.
Got it. And Asif, I come to you and we are talking about data, a lot of data and how to manage them, clean them, and everything. And I think, as Nidhi put it correctly, like getting the clean data, 100% clean data is still a dream. Obviously, it will reduce the time to market, good for the customers, but obviously it's a long way. And in India, we are seeing a lot of these data protection bill coming into the picture. Last time, I think last year, it was there in Parliament. I'm not sure where it is now. So yes. So if I come to you and again, based on what Aapti Institute is, and I think you shared a very good story about Uber as well. If I talk to you like in terms of governance and ethics lens in the combination of all the data cleaning issues or getting the right data or the sovereign data or the clean data, which have all the badges and the privacy as well. Where do you see this enterprise data strategy? Even I think there are 3 big enterprises sitting here. Where do you see these enterprise data strategy fundamentally misaligned with how data should be collected, consented, and used for AI for any use case in the state, be it finance, be it product management, be it anything?
No, thank you so much for having me here. I feel like I feel like the policy people don't get to be in this conversation, so this is really good. And I feel like I already learned so much from these 3 interventions. I just wanted to zoom out a little bit, I think, just to think about India and our own sort of data ecosystem. I think that what Mr. Nilekani had said at some point is that India will be data rich before we will be economically rich is 100% now true, right? But everything that has been said by my co-panelists is about how do we unlock this value of data and what are the challenges that are, that we face from the data perspective. But what we also, like you pointed out, there is a big question around governance, right? And the governance of data has to happen at multiple levels. The first level is obviously privacy and data protection. So as we know that India has passed the digital data protection legislation, we finally have a data right to data privacy act, and it will be implemented soon. And what we see that is because it took like 10 years to come into practice. We started discussing this in 2017 when the parliament said, when the court said we have a fundamental right to privacy, and then we started doing this digital data protection legislation. And obviously it went back and forth. And as we were just discussing over lunch, is like the act that we have now is actually quite dated, right? Because it was a conversation that started in 2017 or 16. And now by the time we got the act in 2024, 25, technology has moved so fast. Right. So personal data as a means of protecting privacy is almost something that we don't even think about now, right? AI has a way of doing privacy infringement in ways that don't necessarily need personal data. So, Google is using your Google Drive to train its model, right? That is an infringement of privacy, and we don't talk about that enough. So the notion of personal data is almost, as a protective mechanism is something that we need to think about. So that's the privacy part of it. There's the other part of it, which I, was surprised that we didn't talk about already, is competition, right? Data is being cornered by big technology companies, and it is something that we don't necessarily have in the context of India, a way to democratize that, right? So we know that the technology companies that have created platforms, whether it's Meta, whether it's Google, whether it's Microsoft, are the ones who obviously are cornering gathering all of this platform data, and they are the ones who've been able to build the big models that we know, and they're the ones who've been scraping all of this data using, with no heed given to confidentiality, no heed given to intellectual property rights, no heed given to all of these other frameworks to make models that are obviously the ones that we are all relying on. So
Right.
even India's own models are actually using these large language models to make that, which means that, there is going to be the bias, there is going to be the hallucination, there is going to be all of these other issues that we already know around AI. The third point of it is the idea of labor, and ma'am brought it up also, is that human labor is being used in the context of data, right? India is going to be the hub for digital labor. We are already seeing jobs being created where people are labeling data. And there is a lot of question around what is the condition, how do we think about this new kind of labor, which we don't necessarily talk about in the context of data, but is obviously interlinked. And then the last point is that if indeed we're going to be in a position where there's going to be machine labeled data, there's also going to be a lot of synthetic data. I read a fact that like 70% of content online will be trained on synthetic data now, right? What does that do to the way that we think about what is truth, what is value, what is, the human part of this? So I think data governance is a really complex set of factors in the context of AI. And I think as India, we also have to think about that all of our data richness is actually lying offline, right? Because we have so much of our health data, so much of our agricultural data is all in undigitalized, all the factors that you said about, like, is it clean, is it usable, is it standardized, is it interoperable? All of those don't apply to all the PHC data that is lying offline. Right? So how do we start to create data pipelines that we can govern, data pipelines that actually are able to unlock our data value for our use cases, right? India may not have the use cases that Japan or US does because we are labor surplus, right? We need use cases that are meeting us in our own reality. So
Right.
It's a complex question.
No, I think thanks so much for this elaborative answer. And I think yesterday only when Pari was doing his keynote, he was telling the exactly same story. I'll be honest that we definitely earlier, if you see, we were exporting all the software and technologies to the world. Now we're exporting data, right? And someone else is capitalizing on it, right? That's true. And one thing which is, I think, very clear, we definitely have the potential because we are sitting on the data mine, right? We are sitting on that, and it's just about that how to start it, when to start it, and obviously it has to start from at least from the Bangalore first, right? If not from India. So if I come to Chandan, you again, I think in the first round we have heard a lot about the challenges, blockers, and I think very well summarized by Astha on the governance piece as well. If I talk to you, definitely if I talk about coming to ABB or all your past organizations, if they are not AI first, but at least they are more advanced in terms of their AI journey, what capabilities or organization shifts have helped you move out from just managing data to enabling real AI use cases, which are helping you for internal workloads as well as for your customers as well?
Customers, I probably would not delve into
Yeah,
too much,
absolutely not.
but I would rather focus on the inward facing
Yes.
functions and how we are at least looking at it. I think the very first thing that we wanted to do was how do we create a single source of truth? Because as I mentioned, right, you have magnitude of ERPs. We have literally over 38 plus ERPs running across and running businesses. Each of them are varied instances of SAPs or different systems, and the data is in different form. So how do you bring it into a unified data model, which is like, if you have to think in very, very simple terms, right? A purchase order is a purchase order. There's a purchase order ID. There's a purchase order supplier. There's a payment term. What you're buying. What's the quantity? What's the price? Different systems having different data structures. How do you bring it into one single source of truth object by combining all of that and making a model which is usable for everybody? Once we are able to do that, then we are enabling it, the second layer, which is like, what is analytical layer? You can talk about your golden layer or bronze layer or silver layer. What kind of data people need? Do we need a refined data model in terms of it's already pre-aggregated for a straight outcome for our executive persona, versus if I want to look at it from an analyst or from a business manager perspective? So creating these different data, I would say marts or data levels, which can provide insights to people. Now, these different data sets can be used by either AI machines or normal analytical systems like Power BI, Tableaus of the world to give insights to people. So single source of truth, layering the data sets, how we want to do it by personas, and then making it available to user in a way where they can consume it in the most simplest form. That's how we have kind of looked into our systems and data landscape. And that has enabled a lot of, I would say, use cases enablement for AIs, because now you have one place where your data is there. You have a threaded data set, which is like from inquiry to order to your remittance, your last is when you get paid, and then when you report it. So the entire end-to-end data cycle is all covered. Give you projects, you've got everything that you need. And you can now try to find out hidden insights, which earlier with those disparate systems, we were not able to do that easily. So getting into a single source of truth, enabling a data pipeline for everybody, that's helped.
Got it. But at the same time, let's say we are using multiple AI tools or these new word like agentic AI agents in different workloads. Do you think it's still the interoperability is still an issue with the larger organizations like yourself?
Absolutely. And that's what I said, right?
Yeah.
If you have 10 different data sets and if you want to use one single tool, imagine you will have to work harder to train that model because you have 10 different data sets.
Right.
Versus if you standardize the data, you bring it into a format which is a consistent format. Once you're able to build a model, once you're able to train it, it's a much easy process because then your data continues to flow in. You have a system which is running and which efficiency keeps on getting better. We talked about the synthetic data.
Right.
If you're building AI on top of smaller data sets, I think you don't get that effective results. And a lot of times organizations try to do is they try to generate synthetic data and build on top of that. Now imagine if a system which is giving you 80% accuracy in a certain amount of data set, now you're using synthetic data, that data may start to get, I would say, corrupted or wrong information because you start with 80% accuracy, you don't really have real world examples. And if it's generating the same synthetic data, at the end of the day, it's bad data treating a bad model. So you have to ensure that you bring in real data and you purify it or you cleanse it up so that it's available for broader consumption.
Got it.
See, one thing what you have asked that different models or there is no uniformity of these models, Gen AI models. When you are going for different models, first of all, these are all completely black box models. What they have built upon, what kind of parameters they have used, it's completely unknown to the world. So if you give the same problem statement to a ChatGPT versus a Gemini versus a Llama, the results are completely different because the source of information, source of training is very different. So ultimately, when you are going for these models, if you are retraining it, that means you are placing some knowledge from your system to this ecosystem to make it much more secure and much more long lasting for your, you can say, use cases. So that's the place where we are probably emerging that, okay, you use a certain type of model, but if you're able to retrain it, then you are putting your own stamp into that solution, and that will not divert as much as you can think about if you're using the plain blind model.
Got it. And on the same line, if I ask you, Shivani, like, how have you solved these challenges? Like, how to bridge the gap between, let's say, my data models and then the engineering teams and the AI performance team and all those things. There are multiple, and even they are working in the silos, right? How have you solved this entire loop and have the best results in the market? Maybe?
I think it's a journey, and luckily this journey started probably 8-9 years back, where analytics or AI came into the picture. Where it has to be business driven. I think when we started our AI journey, it used to be that we data scientists want to build a fancy model, but there is no usability, no ROI. Understanding about that solution to come into the real picture. So I think till 4-5 years back, we used to build a lot of POCs, but only 10 or 20% used to get into real production. So I think after many learnings, now it is a stage where AI teams are sitting with business unit, where they are working with the problem which can be solved, which will create some revenue, as well as it will get into production. So that's the probably one key thing where people need to think that if you are working on a solution, what is the ROI when you are going to get converted to that? Because now with all Gen AI coming into the picture, the cost is really high. Even if you go for a GPU, it's very costly, right? That you can say a CapEx is pretty high, forget about the OpEx. So that journey needs to be probably turned around very fast. Second, when you talk about the data plus AI teams, you can say compatibility and the collaboration, data will never be clean, as Nidhi has also pointed out. We will never reach a stage where we will have it, but it needs to be a iterative process. Once your data is getting utilized by the AI team, they are already processing it and cleaning it. Can you give that journey or learning to the AI data team so that they can clean up the data as a next you can say cycle? So next time when you come back to this same stage, you will not have the dirty data or probably you can say unstructured data into the ecosystem. So that is the second piece which we are doing. Third is, because all the compliance coming into the picture, you have to have you can say all the models needs to be you can say transparent. You need to follow the biasness. So you have to clean the processes. And what I think all of us are doing right now, the compliance and everything as a next step of data and model building, which needs to be thought about it as a first step. I think Chandan was also mentioning that we think as a second thought, but if we are able to do that as a first thought, we will have a much more process in place where AI and data is concerned. And that's the place I think that DPDP will also push us little more deeper into the picture. But still, I think GDPR is much more ahead in that space. I think Nidhi can talk about what is happening in ANZ geography. But I think different regions have different, you can say, maturity level from the compliance perspective. So these are the things where we are trying to overcome with challenges. Some are mature from the ROI perspective. Generative AI is still new. Even when I was talking about comparing a ChatGPT versus a Gemini, think about ChatGPT 4.0 to 4.5. It's huge difference. If you are even changing the version of a model, it's completely different. You have to again do a POC, again retrain it, and then utilize it. So journey is not, people think that GenAI is going to solve the problem like anything. It's not. We are not yet there. I hope we are not there for next 10 years also. Otherwise, we will not be having any jobs.
And I think it is also about not the answers you're getting. It is about what prompts you are giving to ChatGPT.
That retraining is very
important,
important, though it looks very common sense,
right?
but it's not. It's an art.
And the evaluation.
Right.
I think you train. That's the tricky part. Traditional models, they were very set standards of how you evaluate. You had some scores and you have matrices. Evaluating an agent-based response and output is again one of the very evolving fields. And just the way the versioning is changing, the evaluation criteria is lagging behind massively, actually.
Right.
So how do you know what is coming out is actually close to the ground truth? It's a difficult one.
I think just to add to this point, all my business, you can say stakeholders, they want a solution to be 90+% accurate day one. But I think people like us need to train them that, yes, great to have it, right? I would love to have a 99% accurate model. First, how's the data, right? If the data is dirty, data is chaos, it's only an output of that, right? So if what is GenAI is doing, it is just beautifying that. It's not going to change that, right? So if data is not good enough, you will get a similar kind of model also, right? That is one. Second, you have to see where you are today. 99% accuracy is great to have, but if you are currently working in a 60% accuracy or you don't have anything in place, it's not going to get you 99% in day one. There is a journey, and even a 75% model give you a pretty good uplift from where you are. So think about that as a business proposition, that if you are going to from 60 to 75%, you are still going to get a lot of benefit out of utilizing that solution into the ecosystem. That's the way to operate, of telling that ROI driven data science story, where people are more adaptive about these solutions rather than thinking about how much investment they are going to do that.
Got it. Nidhi, coming to you again, because we are talking about the way forward. If I talk about your experiences in the industry and the market with your company and the customers and who you work in the engineering teams and all, how's your data is evolving to treat, and especially your teams, like to treat data as a product with SLAs, ownership, and pipelines that are maybe AI ready by design? How are you taking it for the entire teams?
I think one thing which has really happened in last 1 or 2 years is convergence of data technology and even the operating and the ways of working. So earlier, for example, we were all talking about a common data estate. If all the data should be there now. What we are seeing now is data needs to be owned by the respective business. It's okay if it's not in the same place, but it needs to have the common guardrails and common frameworks. But ownership has to be clearly defined right from the source to the pipeline to the final data product, so that you can have governance and guardrails. And I think in one of the session, it was also spoken about, even if data is all in different places, how can you have a semantic layer on top of it, a layer which explains the data properly so that not just humans, but also agents can understand. So I think that we are moving away from the traditional thinking of big data, everything has to be in the same place, to more a data product, a data mesh kind of a thing, where ownership is critical, governance is critical, very, very critical to have the metadata. What is the data about? What is, and all of this, frankly, and the good thing is we don't, earlier, there used to be huge teams and manual work that was being done to create this. Now we are using AI to create data for AI. So, so AI engineering data. So in terms of how do you use, and we've done that successfully, how do you use AI to map the lineage right from source to the data product? How do you do that entire lineage mapping? What transformation happens on the way? What controls are there, not there? How do you do quality checking? So this process, thankfully, is getting expedited, and the norm of, how can we create those strong data pockets? I think, that's emerging quite well. So, having said that, it's still a journey. It's going to take time. And as I said, the definition of data has really broadened now. We're not just talking structured data. So imagine doing this for a lot of unstructured data as well. So with call scripts, when somebody calls, you need to look at how do you use, how will that data product be created, right? And hence, how do you use AI on top of it to create some more data products? Earlier, we never had embeddings of vector database as a data product. Now we have to create a database which has this huge amount of vector database which would have converted. So the definition and everything is changing so dynamically. But I think one, I would say, golden sign or silver sign that I'm seeing is how we are using AI to transform that space. So it's good. When I said technology, very, very important to see how data and technology landscape is coexisting. So systems, service domains, for example, right? Every business units will have certain functionalities and ownership. So how is technology ownership being defined? Data ownership is defined. The point that Shivani, you mentioned about engineers or data scientists earlier used to be in central team. Now they need to be closer to the business problem. Right. What customer problem are we going to solve? It needs to start from there. And then you work backwards. So they're working very close to the business, close to the customer problem. And that's where the benefit arises. So I think everything needs to move in tandem and with a very thought through operating model to make it successful.
I agree. Even for any business case solution, obviously, where your data scientists are sitting, your business teams are sitting. Yes. So they're talking to the customer, they're giving you real-time intelligence, what they are hearing from the market. Yes. And data scientists are working on those. I absolutely fine. Yes. Astha, if I come to you and where we left in the first round, like we are sitting on a data mine and we have a lot of data, we are exporting data, we can be AI leader, and we are, I think, well on the journey itself. And I think majority of the audience are from GCC community, and we are delivering tons of projects and products from India to the world. Should GCCs take a lead in creating that enterprise data governance standard or something which can be a benchmark for the industry itself and then the world as well, and especially as they increasingly becoming the hubs of AI delivery earlier, and not only delivery but also innovation, right? Earlier we used to be only a delivery center. Like 15 years back, all the GCCs were AI delivery centers. Now we are delivering as well as innovating from India for the world. We had multiple examples in morning session, Broadridge, SAP Labs, PepsiCo, a lot of examples which are the products and the tools are being made in India and then utilized by the global customers and the internal teams globally. What do you think about this? Should GCs take a lead in doing it, and any suggestion on top of it?
So I think India has already been in the context of, technology has been taking the lead. So, we created the UPI protocol, and then Google was able to develop Google Pay out of India, right? The first product that was made outside the borders of the US. So I think that we have had this opportunity where I think India's digital infrastructure is facilitating innovation, and that has always been the objective of how the whole digital infrastructure discourse has rolled out in India, right? And we've seen that, and I think a lot of this is also coming in the context of data. So I mean, in the financial services, there's account aggregators now, which are this techno-legal approach to unlock data for individuals so that they can draw value from it, right? So I think in the context of like a governance framework that in GCCs can take forward, I think that India is ripe for thinking about that, and I think that particularly around questions of how do we embed context in models, there is a lot of work to be done in that, because I think that this is a point that particularly when it comes to, it's almost as like you said, right? Like we have the data, we send that abroad, the models get trained, and then the models come back, and now we have to again spend the time training the models and do all of that, right? So how do we break that cycle? One is, how do we draw value from our data, which is, as I mentioned, ideas around competition, ideas around India's own sovereignty, security, etc. All of those need to be thought about, and I think there is an opportunity for enterprises to think through some of those questions. There's also an opportunity to think about how do we build for innovation in the context of India. So what can we do to unlock the value of data within India? How do we make sure that it's not just something that big enterprises sits on? I was recently in a conversation about MSMEs. India's MSMEs are in data blind spaces, right? That is not just from basic things to having access to GST data to be able to get loads of that, to other more sort of unstructured data that they can draw value from. All of that is an opportunity for us in India, and we are very peculiar in that way. And also, then there's scope for leadership in the global south. India is going to, host the India AI Impact Summit in Feb next year. This is a really big opportunity for us to create frameworks, create leadership around governance that actually positions as a way of, how can we unlock the value of data? How can we do that in a rights protecting framework? How can we do that in a way that we center it around innovation for our own ecosystem? And Europe is doing it, right? Europe has got its new Euro stack, which is anchored around, creating walls around their data sets in their EU data spaces, for instance. So there are examples that we could start to think about at a sectoral level as well as at a national level.
At least we have different pillars, maybe not in the place, but we have all the pillars touched in India. Before wrapping up, just a quick thoughts from all of you, maybe in one sentence, because a lot of GCC leaders are here, and I'm very sure that a lot of people are watching online as well. In one sentence, what is the biggest advice? Maybe Chandan, I start with you again. Sorry, I'm putting you place again and again. But if I start with you, what is the one single biggest advice you will give to any GCC leader who wants to accelerate their data strategy without killing their AI ambition? Maybe in one sentence.
I would say, get your data strategy in place, the right one. Create a foundation for your data. That's going to solve all your problems. You figure it out, 90% of the work is done.
Nidhi, you?
I was waiting for.
No, I'm good. Yeah, Astha, you can go ahead next.
So my focus is never GCC, but public good. And I think that there's a lot to be done around also enterprises creating data infrastructure so that we can also unlock some of that data, which is sitting idle for public interest. So, yeah.
Interesting.
I'll just say, be bold and take ownership. There's so much of talent. So whatever we want to solve AI problem or data problem, I think we just need to take charge. Sometimes in GCCs, we have this mindset of, I'll wait for being told. So just be bold and take ownership.
Shivani.
I think I'll just add to the point what Chandan has mentioned, that define the data strategy. It's probably a different thought process, AI-driven data strategy. Where, see, data is pretty big. If you try to solve the entire journey, it's like solving the world hunger. So concentrate on the areas where you have AI use cases known at least. solve that problem as a first step, and then it will automatically generate the revenue to solve the entire data strategy. So thought process should be where revenue can be given to solve the data strategy itself.
Right. So taking AI on the very first day when you are defining your data strategy. Perfect. Thank you so much, Chandan, Astha, Nidhi, and Shivani. And I think one clear takeaway for at least for me, and I'm very sure that a lot of you will also resonate, is like your AI mission starts with clean data, governed data, and connected data. And if you are in place with these three, I think bang, you are absolutely on table. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the audience for your time.